Oh, fabulous. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this Monday, February 25th, 2013 meeting of the Sherborn Board of Selectmen. As is our usual practice, I will read the agenda. We will entertain any amendments to that agenda up here and vote on them and finally approve something. So as we go forward, 6:05, public comment. At 6:20 ppm. The selectmen are going to discuss and review the TA Special Act. As a selectmen's discussion, we will also review the draft warrant for the annual town meeting, including a traffic safety warrant article and a SPAN DS article. We have the review and possible approval of warrant number 34. And the venerable topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting. Now, I understand that you have an amendment that you'd like to make, and I have one as well. Paul, have you an amendment? I'll propose this one. The first amendment I'd like to propose is to allow the accountant to reclassify one of our legal payments and seek a reserve fund transfer for this amount, $21,9501.
I think that's a great amendment. I second your motion.
Okay, all in favor of that amendment? Yes. You have an amendment also?
I don't really have an amendment unless you're talking about my little, no, we'll have that discussion when we get to here,
Oh, fine.
okay?
Okay, yeah, fine. All right, so
It's already there.
we are done. We're then moved and amended and approved. So it is, wow, 6:05. It is time for public comment. So if there is public comment, let it be made. Right. Hearing none, I will move us on to 6:20 ppm, early, very early, to talk about the TA Special Act. If you guys want to, you have I think a starting place
Sure,
for us, Peter?
I'm happy to, as you know, and I hope you have enough oxygen.
We'll see. I may pass out before
I
you're
don't
done.
think it'll be that long.
We'll find out.
But since I got involved in the town back on advisory, and then when I got here with Jim Purcell, I've been asking for an org chart, and Purcell promised before he'd leave he'd do one. So I thought I'd do one that I think will be useful for our discussion of the TA Act.
Okay, good. I also wanted to make just two quick thoughts that as part of this discussion, and probably coming out of this, will be the goal of this discussion is for all of us to be on the same page as to what the Special Act does, right? What
Yes,
it
our
empowers,
understanding of what it does.
what it
yes.
empowers the TA to do,
Right.
what powers rest with the TA, over whom those powers are exercised, what powers remain with the board, and over whom those powers are exercised. Very simple stuff, but that's where I wanted to get.
Could I suggest a modification of that?
Certainly.
You're talking about the article.
Yes.
And as I've looked at it and talked to people in town, I see a lot of variation
Yes.
of what people support and what they don't support. And therefore, I'm thinking this kind of global construct. Don't we as a board have an obligation in the warrant process to put on the warrant essentially everything that we've been told by our consultants ought to be done? And that there's a separate discussion about what we think ought to be done. And that might be a second article or a third article. Let me kind of play this out a little bit. If you recall, advisory asked for many years to have all these consultants brought in. And this board said many times, we thought that was premature, we weren't ready to take on all these recommendations, there were all kinds of other things. And there were many people, particularly some of the elected office holders, who took the same position, that we shouldn't have these studies and so on. But town meeting voted to have those studies. And you led the charge to have Collins brought in, have the study expanded, and so on. Well, now that we have the study, do we want to hold back on some of the recommendations? Because we think somebody in the community doesn't like it and somebody else has an objection? I'm suggesting that maybe we should put everything out there so that the voters have it all.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe put either as a second article or a third or a fourth, alternatives down from that.
Sure.
So we have this hypothetical, let's say these studies recommended 10 changes. So Article 1 would be, here's everything. Article 2 would be, here's what the Board of Selectmen supports as
Right.
version 2. I think there's at least one citizen article out there with yet a different version. There may be more than one selectman's version. We might say, we want to try an article that would accomplish 7 out of 10, and then a fallback article that accomplishes 5 out of 10. If you put all that on the warrant, then if somebody wants to, let's say on the one that seeks 5, somebody could get up and say, well, I'd like to add number 6 or number 7. There's somewhere in that warrant you can do that. But if we go immediately to just putting 5 out of 10 on the warrant, then nobody can go beyond it. We have foreclosed the right of anybody to expand the scope of what we've done to bring up anything else.
I wouldn't disagree. The only thing that I'm really fixated on and am hammering on here tonight is I want whatever it is that we have on the warrant to be understood well. I want people to understand what it is we intend, understand the language, understand the scope, whether it's 4 items or 7 items or whatever else, that the intention of what we put on the warrant is clearly spelled out so that we know what the upshot is, what we're trying to accomplish, how it fits in the recommendations from either DOR or Collins, and so that we don't confuse people further. Already we've had some good input that I think gives us a little bit of heads up that we need to separate some concepts from each other. And by doing that, we wind up with something that's clear, easier to understand, and I think easier to implement, that people will accept and move forward with. So should we do it in more manageable chunks? Why not? As long as the intention is to give people a better understanding of what each of those particular things is going to do.
Well, I think, I have an open mind to what Paul says, but I think that's the key word, is confusion. I'm confused.
That's why we're having this
What we're trying to
discussion
do.
tonight, because everybody's
And I'm
confused.
confused, the warrant has fallback positions already and so forth. So I think we really do have to limit the confusion, or we'll be prone to failure at all sorts of fronts. And I don't know if that helps the town either, so.
Let me just add one other point, which is that tonight's discussion is not about what we support. It's not about what do we vote. When we're at town meeting, what article are we going to recommend that they support? The discussion today really is,
How do we structure this thing?
what goes on the warrant in a way that is clear to the voters, that
And clear to us.
and clear to us.
I want it to be
No,
clear
but
to me.
I think you're making a good point.
I
You're saying
volunteer
this
to
isn't-
understand this.
This isn't what we're saying we necessarily support, but we're putting it out there for the voters to evaluate and approve at this stage of the game, is what I think I'm hearing you say.
Right, if we put out 10 changes,
If that's where we're comfortable by
Yeah,
the end of
if we
tonight.
grind these apples anymore, they're gonna be juice instead of sauce.
Well,
So,
but if we put out 10 changes, we can do a motion at town meeting for 5. But if we put out a warrant article for 5 changes, we cannot do a motion at town meeting
no,
for
understood,
10 changes.
understood. As long as we have
I guess I
bite-sized,
understand.
clear chunks
Yeah.
that melt in your mouth. and
Clarity
your
is
hand,
key.
then I'm happy with this.
Clarity is
All
key.
right, so I did actually punt you the ball first.
So you want me to try and do my thing? All
I
right.
think you should try and do your
So-
thing.
So I got a little frustrated, I kept asking for these things, and so I did, my first draft I called it current state of confusion for the org chart of Sherborn. So I did something a little bit, hopefully.
Brace yourself,
that
ladies and gentlemen.
meant for you guys to see for the most part. And I'm using, I have a friend that I went to college with that went out, when he first got out of college, selling pots and pans. He would find out the women that were getting married, that were announced that they just got engaged. And he would go to the house, he would get to the, make a cold call to the house, and he'd pull out of his bag this thing in this blue velvet bag, and it was a pot in there. He'd be talking about the features and benefits of the pot to his potential salesperson.
Did you bring a
And
pot?
no, I don't have one. But he's just rubbing it with this velvet thing, and she's like the whole time, just show me the pot, show me the pot. So anyway, that's not, so, at the very top here, I'm gonna not show you the full pot, all right? Who's in charge?
I'm clearly not ready for this meeting. I am not ready for this meeting.
That's a little levity to what's serious, all right? So, in my evaluation, who's in charge? It's the voters. I didn't put taxpayers, I didn't put residents, it's really the voters, because they're doing what's done down at the next level.
Oh my God. I want that pot.
So, look at this. This in the org chart structure is called the rake. All right? What I have here, and I have a little code, in blue is elected committee, basically, subject to open meeting laws. Library trustees, Board of Health, Planning Board, assessors, school committee, regional school committee, Board of Selectmen. Water closet, water commissioners, cemetery commission, rec commission, Solid School, and then over here we have other elected official, moderator, and I forget who that was. I'll come back to you, I can't read it.
Constable.
Then we have
No?
Yeah, the constable.
Constable, yes.
Thought I was a
Yes,
constable.
yes. And then I have tax collector, treasurer, and clerk, who are elected officials, not subject to open meeting laws, not a committee. Just answer directly to the voters, okay? And so I circled them in yellow, just to represent that. All right, then we go down a little bit further, and those groups go down to here. And I had to do it this way, not that I put the TA in the middle, but because we're talking about TA here, it makes sense. But each one of these have employees, one or more employees reporting to them. And I circle them, that's actually purple, it's not red, means they're subject to the personnel administrative plan. What is in the bylaws here?
Gotcha.
Okay, so the town is responsible for their behavior, as well as providing them the protections that are
Codified.
written here, codified in the personnel action plan. And these people, it's not clear, well, I won't get into whether they're appointed by these people or not. Now we go down to, here we have a TA, all right? And don't go all the way, what the hell?
All the way.
Why not? Here's your pot. This is my interpretation, best I could do it, all right? So we have the town administrator, and I have appointed by BOS in green, okay? So some of these people are multicolored. Subject to personnel action plan, also has a contract, but in his contract, David's subject to the personnel action, administration plan, and he's appointed by the Board of Selectmen. Currently, and this is current structure. Fire chief, strong fire chief, appointed by Board of Selectmen, subject to personnel administrative plan, and the employees, lieutenants and captains and so forth are also subject to the personnel administrative plan. But I didn't put appointed by the Board of Selectmen, because I don't know that, all right? So I think they're appointed directly by the chief, okay? Over here, police chief, appointed by the board of selectmen. So I have this dotted line, I have dotted lines there, just, we'll talk about that in a minute. Police chief, strong chief, personnel administrative plan, appointed by the board of selectmen, and the officers underneath the police chief are also currently appointed by the board of selectmen in keeping with the strong chief legislation as I understand it, okay?
Correct.
All right, then we have appointments, and I didn't put, and so I have lines here because it's a little confusing, and we've been long without a TA, but I put in dotted lines here, which I call to be determined or dual reporting. And I don't, so that's, this is an interpretation I have, okay? There may be laws and regulations that say otherwise, but that's my interpretation of the practice, if you will, all right? Then we have these other appointed committees, so personnel committee, they've got the personnel administrative plan, they have no employees. We have council on aging, that, as you see, the org structure that I've interpreted it to be, which I interpret in large part based on our current bylaws for the TA, section 6.2, powers and duties. The way I interpret that, this is how it is.
Who belongs to the
Okay,
team?
who belongs to whom, all right? And so we have a CM&D director over here who happens to be appointed by the Board of Selectmen, as I understand it. And then we have union employees, so no personnel administrative work. We have a COA director that I'm not clear, but I think is appointed by the Board of Selectmen as opposed to the COA, but I'm not clear on that. That needs clarity. And we have employees, employees underneath there who are both personnel administrative plans. We have recycling. This is recycling appointed by the Board of Selectmen, and a transfer station, no employees, okay? But still under the contract administration is here, all right? Accountant, appointed by the Board of Selectmen, personnel administrative plan with some employees, but also under the TA, the BOS office. So there's where Diane lurks and Jeannie lurks in their personnel administrative plan, all right? Then we have Concom has an agent, appointed by the Board of Selectmen. No. Yes. I'm not sure.
Nobody's.
That's why I call it confusing. ZBA has the building inspector, I believe, appointed by the Board of Selectmen. Both of these personnel administrative plans. Then we have Farm Pond Advisory, which provides some, and I call it committee direction on the green line here. But Farm Pond employees all fall under the TA. So there's my interpretation of things. And then if I were to pull out the red pen that I brought, then it's a question of what the draft TA Act is doing, as I understand it, as I'm trying to interpret it. And I'm going to circle in red the ones it's going to put under the TA, as it currently is drafted as of January 31st. Before I go there though, Paul, you may have clarity.
No, just that box that says PAP, what is that?
Personnel administrative plan, so they're subject to our personnel bylaws. Okay,
Peter,
and that's elected,
But we gotta,
no,
there's some straightening to be done.
the building inspector is appointed by the Board of Selectmen,
Yes.
not the zoning board.
right, so I think I should put him in green, I didn't put that in green yet, right? The colors
That's
get
okay.
confusing, but I think if that's true, that makes sense to me, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know about the agent, if she's in green,
Which agent?
Conservation.
conservation agent. I think
Yeah,
she's appointed
she's-
by the Board of Selectmen,
She's
right?
appointed by us,
As opposed to.
doesn't report to us.
And the farm pond employees are appointed by the selectmen. Okay. See, I'm learning. That's why I really wanted this, to fully understand it. So if you look at that, we're a body of 3 volunteers who have a whole bunch of folks doing stuff for us in some manner or other, which if I'm correct in my interpretation of the current bylaws and this structure, the black line, the day-to-day, even though we appoint, the day-to-day overview is shared where there's green lines from these committees, but it really rests with the Dan Keys of the past world.
Well, not really, but
In theory,
not
on
even,
paper.
not even in
But
theory,
not in practice,
not
I would
even.
say historic.
But
Not to
we'll
name
go forward.
names, but
We'll go forward.
So then, what we're talking about, if I just circle the areas of movement under the TA, so I'm gonna call that, I'll put it up here,
Which version of the
change.
TA Act are you?
The January 31st one, the only one that we have on the.
The one that we voted last time was the
Okay.
only single.
Okay,
Okay.
even though we
Only
had some
single
modest
version.
changes to it.
All the other versions
Right.
are null and void.
So as it reads right now, it's got the library, not the committee, actually, it's this group right here.
Yeah.
Sorry for the error, now I'm gonna mess up the
Exactly.
beautiful one, okay? It doesn't touch the Board of Health, doesn't touch the planning board, touches the assessors, right? Moves this all in the current draft.
And what all was that for us back here?
That's the tax collector, treasurer, and clerk. And the draft it has right now, sorry for putting my back to you, is doing that. So change to, I guess we call it HFTA in its most basic terms. Fire TA. Would that be a fair statement? And actually,
It
I don't know if I wanna go there, cause then I have to circle all like these guys too.
Yeah, there are general ways that you can talk about this that don't require you to
Color code.
to color code everything. And also to tie back some of these, I'll let you go ahead and
Well,
finish up, but
No,
to
but
tie
I
them
think
to-
if I read that draft right now, actually, I do have to change these,
Yes, the town administrator appoints
everybody.
all the town employees. Some of them are subject to
And-
being approved by the Board of Selectmen.
Arguably here, right?
right, it's an administrative role. Those that still are required to be appointed by the Board of Selectmen will be appointed by the Board of Selectmen. Administration of those employees and their daily,
Well, that's not what that reads.
but this is why we're having this discussion,
Yes.
all right? So why don't you go ahead with this one, and then we can
Well, so
go
that's what
further
I got.
afterwards and make this.
Have I missed
square this up.
anybody that's getting a red circle?
What the draft that town council prepared and we approved has the town administrator as the appointing authority.
And when we say approved, wait a minute, we said approved to include in the warrant, doesn't mean we
Right.
approve that it's the.
Right, no, it's just
Doesn't mean we
the
support
language.
it.
Okay.
Right, it's the language is not gonna get us
Right,
sued by it.
right.
But again, her instructions were to take the Collins report, the DOR report, come back with, they appoint, the TA, this is to empower the TA, and the TA would appoint all the town employees except for, and there are categories that are exempted, and there's a category of department heads which are subject to approval by the Board of Selectmen. So the TA would essentially
Right, that's
do the
sub-
procurement
that's correct. Like
and the
here,
recruiting,
Like here, there.
right,
yes.
like the police, but present it to the board for the board to act on. So the one of January 31st, or whatever it was, had 3 classes of employees. There's a bunch of department heads that are subject to approval by the Board of Selectmen. There are a bunch of exempted outside of this, and I think like maybe the planning board, the Board of Health, maybe.
That's right, I didn't touch those. Board of Health, Planning Board, school committees,
School committees, yeah.
those are the 3.
Those are exempt, and then everybody else was standardized as being all coming through the town administrator.
And I didn't distinguish here, for example, in our library, we have a library director who, I understand, has a contract that was created with the trustees and so forth, you know, those sorts of things exist. I didn't segregate that out because I didn't have enough paper, I needed the wall. But so so I think I understand what we're saying, then the question is, how do we want to go forward?
Well, I think a couple of things to say just in general, and kudos to you for the big chart. It's been a long time coming.
That's our.
I think that the phrasing is important in that when we say the TA hire fires, you're really looking at it as the TA administratively executes the Board of Selectmen's power to hire and fire under their direction, right? The idea that the TA is in general daily contact with those people with whom he works, more so than the Board of Selectmen, gives them a more functional relationship with the TA than it does with us, and I think a more proper one. So at the end of the day, who's gonna be more responsive and know more about what's going on in a department, the Board of Selectmen or the TA? Well, the Board of Selectmen have titular responsibility, legal responsibility for making these appointments and removals, and that will stay the same. But for the TA to have a role in recommending whether those things ought to go forth or not, should be involved in the process. TA knows what's going on.
But how do we say that? We don't say that
No, that's
now.
why I'm not suggesting
Okay.
that I have language for that, but it needs to be there. That's the intention of this. The intention is more important than what we're scribbling here, is what is it we're trying to accomplish?
The logical construct is that the hiring and firing of employees has become a very technical and regulated business, often done wrong. By done
And
wrong, I don't
decentralized
mean,
by bunches of people.
Whoa, yeah.
I don't mean
Everywhere you
wrong
have a red
person's
circle,
hired. I mean
someone's
that
making a decision.
it's so regulated that it becomes a function of great liability for the town. So the modern thrust is have experts who know what the rules are, what the law is, avoid liability in the hiring and firing of employees by putting it in competent hands. The reason why
But for
There are-
administrative purposes, right, that's the whole point. We won't run into an FLSA problem again if we have someone administering those things properly.
Right.
No matter where the end hire fire lives.
But the reason why you exempt something like the school committee, for example, and their employees, is that they're already elected and they're accountable.
Right, exactly.
And they have the open meeting law, and they have all that stuff, and they have staff, and they're gonna have a human relations officer. They're gonna be able to do this without us. Some towns try and have centralized, one human relations functions for both the schools and for the town, but that's a fight for another day. But the point is that to bring the expertise to bear. And again, the point of the warrant article is to put out there sort of the pure consultant's view of what a government should be. But for Sherborn, when you look at that, when you laid it out like that, I can see, for example, why is the library treated one way and the planning board the other? The library is elected and the planning board is elected. They should be treated the same. So that looks to me just like a town council oversight, not a intentional act. But the bigger picture here is if we fix those pieces, do we want to take this and reduce it to something smaller with less change this year? Or do we want to present that and maybe have a second article that would be a smaller set of changes?
Well, I think the consultants said change is good,
Yes.
change is welcome, but go slowly with the change.
Well, let's get
So
this.
that
let's
speaks
get
more to
this-
Paul's point there, is that question.
I absolutely agree, but when you look at this thing, depending on what chunk of this you take, if this gets voted as it sits, it'll be 3 years before there's any change. I would like to ask DOR and Collins both,
Oh.
is 3 years long
No,
enough?
no, there would be
You
three,
know,
there would be
6?
3 years change in the yellows
In the elected areas,
of the yellow folks.
but when you, fair enough, but again,
But you're gonna have change, assuming you fix the oversight that Paul suggested, right?
Correct.
And I would be in favor of that. And I think it's providing clarity on a bunch of these, perhaps, that, you know, the higher fire authority of these folks seems to me an understandable approach. Whether that's the right one or not, I'm not saying that.
Well-
But I think two of the immediate areas that I'm still struggling with, besides the yellows, okay, are right here.
The strong chiefs, what confuses you about the strong chiefs?
To take the, right now, the strong chiefs language, as I understand it, is Board of Selectmen appoint
Correct.
both parties, both chiefs.
That is correct.
And this act is changing that to the TA. Now,
With the approval of the Board of
It
Selectmen.
doesn't change it.
subject to approval of the,
Higher fire for strong chiefs can't change, it's MGL, right?
this will change it.
No, what it'll do is allow the TA to make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, but the TA will have no power to actually do that. It rests with the Board of
Well,
Selectmen.
Our language is
Legally.
confusing on that front.
Exactly my point, and that's what I have been upset about these past weeks. Our language is confusing because the legalities are not confusing,
This,
right? It's purely law.
this is a
Black letter law.
special act and will vary the general laws.
Right.
So what it does say is that the TA will
Will
do all the
appoint.
recruitment, do all that stuff, and will present to the Board of Selectmen,
For final approval, our authority is final on that
Right.
score. So it does not change.
and he can't fire them
Right.
without our approval or our veto. So the basic change would be that instead of our having a search committee and interviewing 30 candidates down to 20 candidates, down to 25 candidates, down to 15, doing that whole process, he would do all of that. And if you talk to town managers across the state, the way they exercise their power to do these appointments is that they consult all the way through the process. That's just, all these town managers are trained in that manner, because they don't want to present a candidate that we're going to say no to. So generally, they keep us informed, they keep the Board of Selectmen informed of who they're interviewing, why, how he's gotten to his conclusions.
Well,
Because the last thing he wants is to be able to recruit
I mean,
somebody
that
to
all,
come in
that all
here.
makes a lot of sense, but I guess where I'm at is the guys who keep me safe morning, noon, and night are not comfortable
are
with what
concerned.
we're doing.
This is
about
what I'm trying to
it.
say.
And we're not, you know, and we're just apparently keeping the discussion here, but,
I would
how do we get to where we,
I would prefer to have two understandings that I think, regardless of the language that's there, which we ought to fix, because language, whether it means anything or not, is important, but to understand right off the bat that the final authority for that belongs to the Board of Selectmen and will not change, period. The TA will not have the power to hire or fire a strong chief without the Board of Selectmen exercising that power. That's a fact. And that, I can understand why our strong chiefs would be concerned about that.
I have no problem.
Just whatever language change we need to say that clearly and directly and upfront, I would be for.
Let me try and go back to what I said before. I think we have an obligation, because of a town meeting vote, that we hire these consultants, and we do this work, that we ought to present the whole thing.
Oh, agreed, and let's just word it right,
And-
so that we can present the whole thing and it goes right.
Wait, just hold up a second. To me, the dilemma is that when we go to town meeting, what do we actually support? And it may well be the police chief and the fire chief ought not to move at this point to the TA for a variety of reasons.
Or except for
Maybe that's
administrative
something-
reasons, they should, for administrative reasons, because they're in touch with them every day.
But let me just finish. So to me, the issue is, do we do a second article that takes those positions out, for example, and maybe other positions out? Or do we put in everything and at town meeting go in with a motion and go to advisory with a request for a smaller piece? So that if by town meeting somebody decides, we ought to, it works well in other communities with the police chief and the fire chief, going through the TA, let's do it. If we take that out now, as Peter was suggesting, that cannot be revisited at this town meeting. So we are making a decision for the people. And the part that troubles me is the people decided that we ought to have these consultants, and they ought to come in and tell us what their thoughts were.
I get you, but I guess I looked at your town meeting experience, Paul. You know, if, in my limited experience at town meetings, from the cheap seats, to the extent there's multiple choices, people get confused, they don't have the bandwidth or apply they have the bandwidth, they don't apply the bandwidth necessarily.
In Sherborn, they have the bandwidth.
That's right, they don't apply the bandwidth to figure out the subtle differences, and then they say, well, I can't figure this out, I'm not voting for anything. And so I've seen it happen more than once on different types of situations. And so the question is, we have to act in what's in the best interest of Sherborn. And I think we're pretty committed to some kind of change is in the best interest of Sherborn, right?
That's how we hired the town
And
administrator.
so that speaks, what you're suggesting is the full-blown version and another version, and I just fear the confusion, that's all.
Yeah, I want to add,
But your experience may suggest we can manage that, because we also currently have a backstop alternative in here that is confusing me even more. Okay? So, and I'm up at this table and I'm confused.
To me, the only issue is, I mean, I can see easily, let's, for sake of making things simple for the voters, let's take the police chief and the fire chief out, because I'll take your word for it, they're opposed to it for whatever reason.
Wait, now this is, you guys got, I'm sorry, I've been very quiet recently, last 20 minutes or so.
Thank you for that.
You're
We at least
welcome.
get to-
You're welcome. I feel like we've gone into greased pig mode, right? And the greased pig mode is that we're talking about things that aren't really a problem, right? We're trying to get around something that isn't a problem. If the language is
word it
clear,
right.
the consultant said, yes, involve the TA in the administration of the chiefs as well as these other parts of the government, okay? The answer about whether or not that's an administrative daily function from someone who is a chief operating officer in touch with our police chief on a daily basis. How's it going, chief? You got enough bullets? Yes. How are you doing, Red Chief? Have you got enough lug nuts and hoses? Yeah. This is the kind of administrative thing that goes on. He's gonna be seeing you, a lot, and knowing whether or not, you're beating your guys or having trouble at the shop. It's a lie, I know, but there's some issue there that might need some action when the Board of Selectmen doesn't see you that much. The interaction between the strong chiefs and the TA is a great benefit to the chiefs, especially because the TA doesn't have the end-all power to do anything to you, except help you out. If there is a problem that has to do with firing a chief, it comes to the board, period. No matter what the TA says, comes to the board. Now, the TA can initiate the process, get involved in the administrative end of it, but that power doesn't belong to them. So literally what the consultants have said to us is, it's a very good idea to have a professional interfacing on an administrative basis with your professional public safety people frequently and often and from a non-political point of view. We're politicians, right? TA is not a politician. He's a professional, somebody who's gonna operate the town. So in that context, I believe that's what the consultants were saying. Get the operations officer involved in these decisions, keep the political end away, and yet know, the strong chiefs can know, that in the language of the law, the TA is there as an administrative function and nothing more. So that's to clear it up,
My favorite
not grab the pig.
I think what you're describing, like, if you accept the dotted lines here, in essence, exist today, right? That's
One's an administrative line, and that's a
your
hire fire line.
Okay?
Yeah, that's a
So that-
lifeline.
So now what you're suggesting, I think, is kind of a through there. It's a subtlety.
There's the pig, folks. That's the greasy pig.
That's a grease pig, but because.
It is,
well,
it does,
I
it
mean,
does.
All right,
It does not, you're right, in the sense that it's a pass-through line.
But that's
It
why we
can't
put
stop
in
there. And that's exactly right.
That's why Barbara put in there that he can't do anything with the fire chief or the police chief without the approval of the board of
Right.
selectmen.
And that's what needs to be said here. No chief is threatened, there is no direct authority there for the TA to do anything but administer helpfully. The Board of Selectmen retain all of that authority, period. And I think that's been one of the issues that everybody's been most confused about, that the language surrounding that seemed very unsure. But I've had a lot of discussions to reassure the affected individuals that this is not the intention, nor is it legal for us to do that.
Well, I talked to Barbara, I mean, where the language comes from is from town council,
Yes.
Barbara San Andre. And I talked to her about where this language come from, and it comes from pretty much all the other town manager acts,
I don't like it.
where they have a strong town manager, they have them appointing these kinds of officials, but they leave to the Board of Selectmen the ultimate yea
But that's
or-
semantics, that says the same thing. They can
So that's where-
appoint them with a magic wand, but unless the selectmen appoint them with paper and pencil, it doesn't
Right.
happen. So it's the
Right.
same thing, it's just
So
semantic.
That's where
game.
it's tried and true language that's been used in many other places.
But other people haven't understood that, and I'm just trying to make it absolutely dead clear that that's what this means.
But just to clarity, Paul, what you're talking about, you said town manager, we're talking town administrator. That was just you really meant town administrator in these other situations.
No, this structure where the difference between a town administrator and a town manager is that a town manager has appointment authority and a town administrator doesn't. Town administrator is just a coordinator. And what I got from talking to Dick Kubayashi was, you basically have a town administrator who goes around hand in hand, basically saying to people, can you give up $5 over here so I can give it over there? He's actually has no authority. He's only a coordinator. So he might as well be called a town coordinator.
Or secretary.
A town manager is a step up from that. He's got a little more oomph to him.
I understand, but technically, we have hired a town administrator, and this is the TA Act, not a town manager. We're
Right,
just trying to
but this-
give
We're trying to give,
clarity of authority is the way I interpret this, with some additional,
yeah,
Some additional town manager
Please.
like
like, okay,
functions.
thank you.
to address issues that both DOR and Collins brought up.
I understand.
Here are some things you can do that will do this. And we had discussions with our citizens and voters for 2 years over this, and I think the idea of strengthening the town manager to take care of these administrative functions so that they're properly put into an organizational function that makes sense from an operating officer's point of view is what everybody said, what a great idea.
So now, how or when will we have interaction with the community on this topic, given that we're gonna
As
go
soon-
close
as
this
soon-
on Thursday?
as-
Besides, on advisory's public hearing, and besides at annual town meeting floor.
First of all, as soon as we agree as to what we're saying, so that when we talk to the public and they ask us a question, we can say, this means that, categorically. No, this will never happen without the Board of Selectmen doing this, or the,
But I'm trying to make a distinction here. I think right now I'm suggesting to you, I feel an obligation because it was a vote at town meeting, to throw everything, the good, the bad,
it's how we work.
give it up to the leave it up to the voters. But there's a separate question as to what I think would work best for Sherborn and what priority some of these changes should be made. And to me, the changes for the police chief and the fire chief are not a priority. It would be nice if everybody was on board with it and was happy and kumbaya about that. But if it's an issue, when it comes to what do we support and what motion do we want to see at town meeting, that to me isn't
So
the
if we
crux
remove-
of the matter.
So if we just simply removed the language that said that the TA has any authority in the hiring and firing of strong chiefs, bam.
If we took it out, the criticism is, hey, that Board of Selectmen You know, way back, they didn't wanna have this study, because they said the town wasn't ready for it. But now the study's occurred, they're still saying, we don't wanna give you everything,
Well-
we only wanna give you some. So it's, to some extent,
But there is
It puts us in
language
the wrong
that can
position.
amend it to
Thank you.
retain the strong
Thank you.
chief situation.
This is what I wanna
In
say.
a couple of the sections of
It's a
this
dangerous and slippery slope, and I agree with both of you, this is really weird. It's a dangerous and slippery slope to,
at the same time.
at the same time, no less.
act on different items.
Watch me now. It's a slippery slope to start altering what the consultants have asked for because one person or another is annoyed. There's always gonna be somebody who's annoyed with one aspect or another of what the management experts have come to us and asked for, right? And if we start debilitating their quite professional, well-thought-through recommendations for how we improve our town, because this one doesn't like it, that one is uncomfortable, then we have a problem. However, by making clear the fact that I do not believe they came in to our town to disassemble it, make it worse, piss people off, and debilitate us, I think what we need to do is concentrate on what Peter's asked for, and what I've been advocating for, which is to clear the language up, make it plain and clear what we intend out of our interpretation of the management consultants. Their words are not on stone tablets, right?
No,
They're for us to interpret.
Exactly.
Right, so we can come off the mountain a little bit and sort of look at this and go, okay, you know, maybe burning every third child is not such a great thought. And we can go forward and make the language clear for our chiefs and for other people who are concerned about some of these things that Mr. Murphy, for example, has given us some guidance on the library. And there are some other people who are, I'm sure, affected by that very same kind of broad language that we can very, very easily, with succinct and simple language, make clear where the boundaries are, such that if someone has an objection to change, I can deal with that. I can wrap my arms around the fact that some people do not want our governmental system to change. But I want them to be able to do that honestly, and not because of some quirk of the language or some misunderstanding of the process. I want them to be able to say, I don't want that, right? And have a reason, and not say, I'm afraid of that, and no, it means that all the shoes in town are gonna get confiscated. And then we have to go back and say, no, this isn't true. I want it that clear. So that's what I would say.
Yeah.
And when would that be? Could be midnight, or it could be the meeting on Thursday, when we're supposed to
Where we
present
have
this.
Some draft,
This is when we present this.
some
So
wording,
I present
which
the
I think
radical
I
idea.
believe there's some wording that exists that
We can clean this up
can be utilized.
and make it clear.
But let me ask you, do you think I basically am correct in my black lines there that I put in as the way it is? And some of the circles before the red, in terms of how it,
Yeah, they're pretty much right. Do I think they're the way
I mean, somebody
they ought to
might
be?
be-
No.
well, some people might interpret it differently. You know, some of the committees who oversee, you have the green lines to some people who I put as black lines currently to the TA.
I
Might
think there's gonna be
subject-
some interpretive mush. Yeah.
Well,
but
I'm just,
Our org chart isn't an org chart. It's just a flat line.
There's
There's no reporting
one
anywhere.
of the big changes
Well,
we're
that's right.
supposed to be doing here is the selectmen giving up the ability to appoint a lot of people
yes.
who are not the major department heads. For example, take the lifeguards at Farm Pond. Now, I've had the honor to appoint lifeguards for all these years, but the fact of the matter is that there's a recruitment process, and Jeannie Guthrie can describe who they are and what the process is, and a list of names come, and I'm delighted we have enough lifeguards to, and there has never been in my tenure on this board, a time that I said no on a lifeguard. So there's all this time being taken up by the Board of Selectmen appointing lifeguards to
Right.
Farm Pond.
Right, minutia.
Right.
Why do we need to do that?
Bingo. That is exactly.
We have to wait for a meeting, and
Okay.
there really isn't any substantive review, because we get just enough lifeguards as there are positions. We're usually desperately looking for
So is
people.
it fair to say we're comfortable with the lower line and the reds?
We're comfortable. Define comfortable for me.
Well,
I'm not taking a position whether I support any of this,
Okay.
because at the end of the day, I think that's a different evaluation. I'm looking at this from the point of view of, do I have a duty, given the fact that town meeting voted that we hire these consultants, we have this work done, to give the voters the chance to act on those recommendations?
Okay, well, wait, before we get jammed again, I think something sensible was said here a few minutes ago that we probably ought to return to for just a moment. That is to say, I think that we got to a point that said, simplifying the intention of these actions in this one document, making them clearer such that the language reflects what our intentions and our interpretation of the management consultants' reports are, to make them clear so that they don't threaten anyone outside of the fact that things are gonna change for reasons backed up by management consultants.
Well,
That-
some people will remain threatened, I'm sure.
Of course,
There's change.
but let's have people be threatened by change.
Right.
Let's clean this up. So I would move this. I would move that we, that by the Thursday meeting, that we have a look at the language that's in this act, simplify it to the maximum possible degree, whilst including, right, whilst including the broadest range of what the consultants asked us to do, and discuss that Thursday with regard to how much to implement. I agree. They asked us to do this, let's do it. But let's do it in an understandable way. Process of government has to be clear.
I have a variety of technical changes to make based on
Super.
the input from those who have taken the time to talk to me, and I thank those who have talked to me.
Yes.
But, for example, one of the points that was raised is that the proposed article is in the form of a job description for the town administrator. The whole job description doesn't need to be an act of the legislature.
Correct.
That really should be divided out. What's needed for the legislature ought to go to the legislature. The town administrator's job description contains a lot of things
That are only locally relevant, yeah.
that only are locally
They're not
relevant.
even bylaw related necessarily, correct?
No.
They could be in a bylaw,
But
You
there's
could-
no.
because we already have a bylaw.
Right.
But they don't have to be in an act of the legislature.
Correct.
So we have all this stuff that's in there.
All right, now you're talking.
But remember how we got there. We got there
See?
because
Simplify.
we asked the town council to write a job description
Right.
that corresponds to what our consultant said. And she came back and said, here's what the consultants say the job description should be. And then when I
Okay.
read it, I said, well, this stuff isn't legal.
Well,
I
then,
asked her, is this legal? And she said, well, no, because it presupposes we're gonna change the law.
let's bust
So
it
then
up.
we asked her, well, then make it into a law so we can adopt this. And she followed through by taking the whole thing and making it into a law, when in fact, 80% of it is all local. We can do already. It's the 20%. It's basically the appointment piece that is different. But everything else is a local issue. Doesn't need to be part of this article.
Well, then, so let's take this motion to heart and say, based on what you've just said, why don't you have a look at removing that which you believe is strictly local? We'll do the same. We'll also work, all of us, to simplify the language that does remain in there to make sure that it's crystal clear as to what our intentions are. And we'll present those things that are relevant to DOR and Collins, this town meeting, that are going to implement those things that we believe as a board are worthy of doing. And let's discuss that Thursday and get it done, without beating this to death now. 'Cause
With all due respect, it would be helpful to me.
Uh-oh.
Okay, to have some concise, constructive criticism from our taxpayers, from our voters, to the extent there is some, to help us further this better.
Would you not think that that would be better received and understood once we get the flotsam and jetsam out of the way?
Well, perhaps, but you know, let's say we misunderstand some things, even in my little artwork, that people closer to the policy and practice of their particular areas of interest. I'm just saying.
No, I'm with you. I'm reticent,
You know,
I'm reticent,
Because at the end of the day, we're still, they're the boss. And we're not letting the boss talk to us on this particular topic right now.
Right now, the intention of this discussion was for us to learn what the hell we're talking about first.
Okay.
It doesn't do any good to talk to everybody else when our understanding is so muddied about this. I think we've come to an important set of conclusions. One, the language that has confused everybody is still here and in front of us. And to open a discussion on the language that's so confused that the three selectmen didn't even understand what they have in front of them is
So-
going to engender a long and misunderstood
So for
conversation.
practical purposes, would Diane be sending us drafts from Barbara that reflect some of these things that we could then provide some input on, that Barbara can weigh in on? That, I
Yeah,
mean, I don't
I
wanna
would think
violate
so.
any open meeting laws, but I do
Yeah.
wanna get
Based on,
to a good
on-
document. I mean, Barbara gave me, just myself, some draft of, you know, the police and chief language, for
Yep,
example.
no, I was doing the same
And
thing.
some accountant language and whatnot, and I just wanted to
I-
make sure we get that, so that all eyes are seeing at some point the same thing without.
Yeah, I'm all for, I want people to have all the information. The idea is to demystify and to make this thing not so threatening.
So defer to my
if,
favorite.
if we took a 4-page document and produced a 1-page document,
Yes,
I think that will, A, focus the discussion,
thank you.
B, take
Very good.
When
stuff that
can we have
maybe-
that?
we don't need to go to the legislature on.
Yeah.
But the point, I do want to come back to this issue, the separate issue, which is, at the end of the day, what is the Board of Selectmen going to recommend out of these Collins DOR
That's what,
recommendations?
that's what Thursday is for.
It may very well be that we really should have a second article. The first article being,
If you
here's-
have two
here's what the
one-pagers,
consultants-
is what
If
you
we have an
put up.
omnibus article that incorporates every change they recommend, and then another article that recommends less than everything they recommend, I'll give you $5 as to which one passes.
because my thought is that, again, it's the question of prioritization. Just going back to the police chief and the fire chief, that to me isn't a priority. It really isn't. It's not gonna save us money.
Well,
and
but we
all those
don't want
kinds of
12
things.
documents, right? You don't want 12 options on the floor.
So, if Peter wants to take them out, I have no problem with taking them out because they're not a priority this year. It's something we can deal with in another year, and there may be other pieces of this. Because
Well-
Collins did say, don't do everything all at
Right,
once.
so like I understand what you described 40 minutes ago about
The sensible
your
thing, yeah.
understanding about the strong chiefs. But for some reason, and I know that you've explained that to our strong chiefs, but their comfort level hasn't necessarily
Oh,
passed the line they need to pass.
I'm committed to doing whatever we have to do for our strong chiefs to be comfortable with our commitment to them personally, as the Board of Selectmen, to not have anything interfere with their relationship with us in terms of their continuing in Sherborn and being appointed or dismissed. That's fine with me.
Yeah,
I agree. If that language needs to go away, I said that 40 minutes ago.
Right.
If that language needs to go away, so let it go away. It's not an issue. Paul agrees as well. It's not an issue. The idea of having some prophylactic language in there to allow administration of these issues, if not execution of these issues, is to create a single platform of analysis and understanding when it comes to enterprise-wide management.
No, I understand.
We are getting to a point where
Yeah.
this is the idea. What is it that Collins and DOR did? Well, they did something complicated. They created a way for us to have an enterprise view of our government, which is not a 300-year-old way of doing things. Yeah, it's a modern way of doing things. It encompasses FSLA, fair wage laws, these things we have with the warrant, all these things that we have trouble with all day. An enterprise operational plan changes our government into something that doesn't stumble as much as it does now. And so when you take one piece away, it might be needed to do that in order to get it through, but it weakens the idea of building a stronger, better future for the town. Because that's what we're trying to do here. We're not trying to dodge landmines. You know, somebody's upset, so we can't do it. That's
Right. I
not,
understand.
that's not
I understand.
righteous.
Yeah.
You know,
Let me just go back to this concept, because I think, the more I think about it, the more I think it's a better way to go. Which is to have one article and say, here's what the consultants recommend. There's 10 things, 15 things. The consultants say, do these things. And have a second article that basically says, here's a Board of Selectmen article about what we think
These four
should
things
be
will help
done.
us.
Now.
Right. This is
So
what
then we
I'm
have
talking
two,
about.
then we have two articles. If the voters, because at the end of the day, it's the voters who said, do these studies. They voted this. There was a full, complete debate about the subject, and they voted at town meeting that this should be done. So they would have there the ability, whether it's through an advisory committee motion or a citizen getting up on the floor, saying, let's do the whole thing, or let's do, more than the selectmen. I don't want this article to be a selectman's article. This is the people's article, because it's everything. But we as selectmen can say, gee, among these 10 or 15 changes,
We find the following things.
we find the following
so
five to
by-
be, the priorities
That's
that we
perfect,
think,
okay.
that we would recommend.
So do you think you can articulate all that to Barbara to get something that's useful? I mean, the latter one being an evolution that will nail Thursday night.
Thursday night.
Right, but the global one, so you have a global one, it may be your best guess based on this discussion.
Well, the global
of
one
the-
will
of
get
the
rid of
selectmen's one.
we'll get rid of the job description language.
You think you can do that, that would be great.
The global one gets rid of the job description language, but leaves in the DOR and Collins imperatives. That's your global document.
Yes.
You and Barbara can do that. Then we will all agree on picking 4 things, whatever they are, that the selectmen say, these we believe will move the town forward for the following reasons, in clear, concise language, that will then be in front of the people to assess based on the merits of the idea. Do you want to do things differently and/or not? That's fair enough, it's the voters' decision. Although I like taxpayers up there better than voters too.
We know
They
that,
get
but,
affected even if they
but
don't
I told
vote.
you why I did, yeah, and I think residents, we
Are you
answered
being
that.
pejorative about the taxpayers who don't vote, Peter?
No, I just,
No,
at
no.
the end of the day, if you don't vote, you don't say.
Come vote, please vote. All right, so, let's,
Vote me on that.
I'm gonna shoot the greased pig. And I'm gonna call for a motion that, gives you, strip the job description parts that are purely local, and we'll decide what bucket to put them in later. It's not important. It can be a bylaw, it can be a job description, we can do whatever we want. And leave the, omnibus consultancy requirements in that bill with Barbara. And then we will agree also on putting together a second selectmen's article that outlines
Our comfort level with the way we know the town.
Yes.
is-
of what things will
that-
best assist
Yeah,
what we need done.
yeah.
So do I
Which
have a
your
second?
I second, yeah.
All right, all in favor? Done.
See what the first one,
Mr. Chairman, you've never talked about the top line.
The top line.
Yeah, you played all down the bottom, you never talked about the top line.
In what context about the top line?
In the context of change from elected to appointed, in the context of relationship.
The only change to elected and appointed that we were responding to with regard to Collins and DOR was in the treasurer collector and the clerk were the only things that were addressed there. The rest of those issues weren't ever specifically addressed. The Salin Academy and the rest of these.
I wasn't aware the clerk was part of the DOR and Collins report.
As part of just elected officials, was part of reducing the number of elected officials that we have.
Don't think,
So, I mean, that's fairly simple. The rest of it is complicated in terms of the rest of the boards, and I think Jim did some good work bringing some of that to the fore, which I'm appreciative of as well. So there's much work to be done there. But in any case, so we're moved and voted on that.
did we vote?
Yes, we voted. They're all in favor, I believe. Right. Now,
That was easy.
oh, nice chart, Peter. All right. We are now on to the review of the draft warrant, which I think is largely pro forma up here. Do you have your numbers? You don't have numbers?
No, I looked at the one that wasn't numbered, that I got earlier as opposed to the one that came at 4:30.
Is there
But
anything, I mean, I think we should just move through and hit something if there's a problem with it, or you think it needs to be?
Yeah, that's fine. I have
moved
comments
off?
on a few things, so if that's all right. I can give you the comments
All
as
right.
we go through, all right?
Yeah, fine.
The very first one, just the annual town report, which is this bad boy right here. So somebody's done this? Like, and we have a letter in there that I don't think I saw, did
I
we?
know, we're waiting for something, right?
Waiting for a few reports left to be done.
Yes,
Okay.
indeed, there are a few reports waiting to be
So
done.
where my name might go on the bottom of something, I get a chance to look at it before it gets
No
published?
way!
Okay, that's all I wanted to ask.
Yes, the chairman of each committee writes the report and brings it forth to the rest of the committee.
I thank him for writing it. It's not an easy.
Quite all right, I will be looking for expert help from my two compatriots.
All right,
It's a chairman's job.
so.
Oh, thanks, here it goes. All right, your
All
next
right,
comment,
no, I
sir.
have one other comment. We used to have an Article 4 that's not in there this year, which deals with the raise and appropriate, blah, blah, blah. Deals with union contract issues, and I just don't know if we have that issue here. Now, next year's budget, I think the police are new, that wouldn't be a factor. But I thought CM&D had an upcharge thing to consider this fiscal year that we might have to have something in there on.
Well, there's been a little bit of disagreement on how to proceed with union contracts.
Okay.
Most of my towns that I work for want union contracts voted separately.
Yeah.
So the voters know what they're getting into, and so there's accountability to the public. Some towns just put it in the operating budget. And the message I've gotten is that Sherborn Advisory Committee wants to do it all as part of,
The operating
Operating
budget.
Put it in the operating
Okay,
budget.
so that's why we don't have it here,
So,
the standard
yeah,
boilerplate.
they want it like a footnote, just saying there's a new collective bargaining agreement and they're funding it. State law says that a collective bargaining agreement won't take effect until town meeting votes the cost items. And if they don't vote the cost items, the agreement goes back to the bargaining. table.
Versus what we used to have, did provide the opportunity for the voters to approve the agreements themselves, if
Right.
I read that correctly. Even though there was never a discussion of what those agreements were or
But-
anything, so people would approve a boilerplate, but they really had no clue
No
what they
idea
were
what it
approving.
was. Now you
And
come
that
down-
always got to me, it was like, well, why aren't we dealing with that a little bit more? Okay,
Well, as part of the budget, it is bottom line.
with the
yeah.
budget, okay, I got you. Yep.
All right.
I'm on the capital budget, just some things. One question I would have, whether we would want to change the order. And I would defer to the chair to think, whether there's a strategic reason to have a different order there of these various items. Think about that. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
And, but.
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah. But anyway, given that, on the fire department one, I need pics and story to be, if I were to get behind some of these, I'd need pictures and a better story than we've had so far. Like I've said to the CM&D director on his trucks, and I sent him an email, I'm gonna send him the
Yeah,
same email
that was the
to
last
Neil.
thing we said last time through.
So that, we don't have the fire department HVAC number. The pedestrian light, I think, needs some installation numbers that I think are floating around out there, so just get the right number in there.
Well, Peter, let me just interject you here with 2 points. First, in doing the warrant, this is not about what do we support. This is
I'm
just
saying that, no,
the
no, no.
requests
but
that are being made.
What,
And secondly, these items are what are called below the line. That is, they're not part of the warrant article. So there is no legal restriction at town meeting to vary the numbers. The numbers are just, at this point, what we know, but they are not embedded in the warrant article.
They'll change as
They can change. So you're right to ask for better numbers or additional costs.
well, I'm just taking the opportunity as we're going through this, to say, here, if I were to get behind something, I'd like more information for the proponents to know.
Okay.
I guess is why I'm saying that. The communications, that number, as you say, it's
In other words,
110, it's not 100.
A presentation on the floor to make it more
Yeah,
palatable to you
better.
as to why to do this.
Exactly,
Yep,
yeah.
I got that.
The Pine Hill Access Road, we actually did get a number on that, the emergency access, and it's 80,000, not 50, but that gets it done.
Right.
So there's a different number there. We know that the Pine Hill School Building Committee numbers are subject to some further refinement, including whether they move it over multiple years or not. They were gonna look into that. Okay.
Right.
Traffic safety's here tonight to talk. So then I get the middle school air conditioning placeholder, and I'll just say that I'd asked for, when we had the presentation, and they had put up the slide that said, the comfort level as the state approves, as well as ASHRAE, which is the Society of Heating, Refrigeration folks, air conditioning folks, is more in the within 78.5 degrees and below is comfortable, but the data included 78 degrees. So I asked for a refinement as well as a refinement of the school day hours, and I'm actually putting it together, just so you know.
I'd like to see
So it'll
that.
be interesting. It'll probably, still there's a lot of hot days there, but nonetheless, it's not as significant as the information currently provided.
Well, I was just gonna say, I've had a number of very interesting discussions about that.
So, just so you know.
Before you leave 8, first of all, I commend you for doing that work. It needs to be done. But secondly,
I've gone blind looking at this stuff.
I'm sure you have.
we cannot issue a warrant with no article.
Right.
You can't just have a title to an article. And we asked if the middle school air conditioning project is gonna go forward. We asked the school committee for an article. So where's the article? We're gonna be signing this warrant in 3 days. We don't have an article. We're going to have to leave it out unless we get that article.
They're meeting Wednesday night, so I'm hoping to have more information from them then.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Let's-
I'm good, but one other thing I meant to mention. We don't have any stormwater management issues, dollar issues this year, I take it.
We should ask Ed, there were two, I think that maybe given the tumultuous year, that there were
Were-
some issues with
What we approved last year, I think, was a 2-year thing anyway, wasn't it?
yeah, but we needed to get the GPS stuff done, the mapping portion of this,
Yeah.
which was to enable us to start mapping
don't
to
have
be in
anything.
compliance with the last permit. So that I think we need to talk about
I
again.
just asked to make sure we're in compliance and that we've provided for, if we have needs, that we ought to be sure that.
That,
know,
we'll have
that's
to
all.
make sure that tomorrow.
If I could add 2 cents to this discussion, part of the funding for stormwater management was being driven by the United States government and the National Pollution Elimination Discharge Permit System. That became an issue in the presidential election, and for whatever reason, the incumbent administration took no action on that. And to this date, they have taken no action on that. And we actually,
So we're ahead of the curve?
well,
We were
We have-
catching up.
we're working on the old permit,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
was much less onerous,
I
and
don't
so
wanna-
the costs are much less. And the new permit that has been issued in draft form has never been finalized.
Okay.
And
If
we
you
don't
if you
know
did-
when the timeline is going to be, because that's gonna require the United States Environmental Protection Agency to come to grips with this decision and to issue a decision.
If you don't want to summon Satan, don't talk about Satan.
So,
Next question.
we don't
Okay.
necessarily need the money until they make that step.
Okay. I'm good on that page.
Well,
Yeah.
what about number 9? Is somebody gonna give us language on that? We got another article with no language.
Right.
The intermunicipal agreement?
And
Can't
number
sign a
10,
warrant
9
without-
and 10.
Yeah. So make notes on those so that we can fill them in.
And there's another one, number 10,
Right.
capital items for the regional schools.
That again, they're gonna vote on, Wednesday night. And it'll be a separate article.
And so Jeannie, you're gonna try and get the changes put in before you get on a big bird and fly away,
I'm
right?
gonna try.
For Thursday night.
Or scatter them in her wake and split.
But if you're unable and yet we need the wording, do we have a backstop?
I asked, Chris Tagg for the wording, and Valerie and Richard Robinson. They basically sent me what they said before, which isn't language,
Right.
so.
That's pretty nice, though.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
yeah, it's fine.
All right.
Don't lose sleep
If
over
we
it.
get
Jeannie.
down to the bitter end, I can always write the article if you give me the information. But I don't wanna do my version of an article simply because I'm a lawyer and then find out, well, gee, you
Let's let
left out a
them,
word.
And Barbara's
But
gonna
if
be
they don't
here
give us
Thursday.
something,
yeah, Barbara's coming Thursday. So well, let's let them do their thing on Wednesday and then we'll handle it on Thursday. I don't think there's
so the
any-
cemetery thing is the usual thing, the
Yeah.
easement over 59 Whitney Street,
Yeah.
that's
that.
That's good.
Um,
The planning board articles come from the planning board.
They're all,
There's no reason why we should change the planning board articles.
nope,
Well, what is
that's
it,
fine.
16 on the conveyance?
16 is the conveyance.
Yep, so we have a definition of conveyance, or in a court, you know, well, the question was fair market value, and Gino put in some wording about citing Mass General Law, Chapter 30B, so it's,
So this comes from the
that-
planning board
Yes.
staff.
yeah.
Right.
Okay,
So I haven't, I mean, I don't read
I'm good with
Mass
it.
General laws, but
Fine.
the point is, it helps to further define fair
Quantify
market
that, yeah,
value and
yeah.
whatnot, yeah. Okay.
Do-do-do-do.
17, that's Odessa.
Yep,
18,
FMLA.
that's the personnel administration plan.
Right, that comes from Personnel Board.
That comes from the personnel board. So
19, Personnel Board as well.
that's for Lieutenant Bento, right?
Yes,
And again, that was requested by the police chief and the personnel board.
Correct.
Again, our function now is just to make sure that we get before the voters, the things that need to get before the voters. These are things that need to get before the voters.
20 is the advisory one, this is where I just say, so we're gonna have a discussion of that, because, okay,
Well,
on
it
Thursday night.
also directly approaches that.
Some of that, yeah,
With regard to the budgetary, that's the other thing that we didn't talk about at all, is in terms
Right.
of what the TA does for budgets. And that
Yes.
is also part of the enterprise business there. So
But
those,
just
that
in
we'll
terms of
discuss.
placement though, wouldn't this, the role of the TA with, excuse me, with advisory
budget.
come forward.
follow after the discussion about
Yes,
whether we're gonna have a strong TA?
yes.
Or
It'll be part of, as far as I'm concerned,
Or
I
does
could
it
move,
need-
I could move a couple of these to the
Well, I
four
cer-
selectmen articles.
Well, yeah, I don't know, in the version that you have now, where the TA article falls, what number it is,
It isn't.
It's Article 25.
25.
It falls
I-
after.
I think it needs to come before what the current Article 22, if not.
No, I agree.
And
I
or
don't-
possibly before 20 is Paul
I
said.
utterly agree,
You
not.
want the TA article to be number 20?
Yeah,
Well,
Yes.
I think we said there's gonna be two articles. There'll be the sort of omnibus, here's
20 and
everything the
21.
consultant said article,
What we're gonna do,
and then we'll have a second one.
Let's
saying,
combine
Here's
these.
what the selectmen are recommending.
right, there's a couple of different things here going on,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So why don't we, by Thursday, let's clean this up. We can actually make 20
And
and,
you understand, I'm not keen on the first part of the current 20.
no, understood, and I think
Okay.
that I can make that more palatable.
Yeah, okay.
So if we look at 20 and 21,
You want to combine those
right,
into
and
a,
then 22,
except you're dealing, well, okay, yeah, you could do that, yeah.
right? You see-
Yeah,
you
because
see
it's
what
the
I'm doing?
same
It's the
conversation.
same idea.
All right, I
You know,
got
it's the
you.
same general idea. So the
20 and 21 combined, but you move the TA ahead of.
all of it,
All of that, yeah,
right? So,
Good.
22
yeah.
is the, let's see,
Should that come ahead of the TA?
No,
no,
22 is the fallback, yes?
Okay,
That's the fallback treasurer collector,
that's the
Okay.
fallback treasurer collector.
all right? And can I ask you?
And it's
just-
Go ahead.
There's a whole bunch of wording in that current 22, talks about a handout, distributed annual meeting, and copies over at the library and the clerk's office, and so
I-
who's doing, what is that, and who's doing all that?
Well, I think also, look, if you got Article 22 and Article 23,
Yeah, they should be together, right?
they should be together and simplified. Because once again, we're looking at the special act versus an article.
they have to be separate articles.
Right,
22 and 23?
22 and 23,
Okay, so
because
can't
they're not the
combine.
same things.
Okay.
But we can have a look at what the language is.
But I
for
will
that.
say, I find those two, the 23, the second one, confusing as it relates to the 22 in this version right now. I just find that a little confusing, so.
They're
I
literally
hope we
just
get
two
that clarity. I
different
mean,
ways to go at it.
We can
No,
put,
but-
right after 23, we can put an alternative to Article 22.
Okay, so 23 is an,
Oh,
so
it's
it's
an
another
alternative, yeah, it's an
fallback.
alternative.
Yes, it's a fallback to the fallback.
Okay, that clarifies it. I didn't
So
get
it's
that.
clear, you don't adopt all three. You don't adopt the town administrator act.
You think
What's up, Gene?
folks in the audience will be confused?
Confused? TA article's gonna go first.
Yes.
Then you're gonna combine advisory and capital budget.
Yes, that's
Yes?
what you said.
That's
We,
what you
we
said.
could, because
I keep it separate
But-
though.
I think we need to talk about what they're intending to
You're
do.
dealing
And
with
do they
two
need to-
separate chapters of the general bylaw.
Yeah, keep-
So
I
it's
understand.
easier to keep them,
We will keep them separate that way. The question is, what are we gonna do about the intention of having them there to begin with? Right, that we can.
We'll nail
simplify.
down,
We'll nail that down Thursday. That's easy enough to do.
okay, so we don't combine.
It's not that complicated.
I'm not changing my numbering yet,
Yeah,
what I'm looking at.
okay.
All right, I got it, good. 23 is a fallback to a fallback. Excellent.
And we should say that. You can put a parentheses, Jeannie.
Well, Thursday we'll give her all that.
Well, what's
Well,
24?
Thursday, we wanna have something to sign.
Another fallback?
So you should actually come up here so we can talk to you.
Thursday I'm not gonna be here.
Yeah, so.
No?
why don't
What's
you come on
what's
up?
24?
Yeah, no, hold on.
You know, we have a 22, Paul, 22, 23, and 24. 23 is a fallback to 22. What's 24?
A fallback to 23 and 22.
It's a
There's
different way to do it.
Three different ways to
One
do
of
the
them,
same
one of them's
thing.
an act,
Okay.
one of them's an act,
Okay,
one of them is a straight vote, and the other one is a bylaw change. Right, so there's three different ways to do things.
all right, we may want
So, you can put
Simplify
after
there, eh?
the article number,
Trust me,
to, okay.
he's Russian.
But-
Time
Tony.
you,
Everybody does.
alternative to,
Right here,
okay,
on Article 23 should be alternative to 22.
right. Knowing that the numbers are gonna change,
and 24 is an alternative to 23.
yes.
And 25 is now 20.
24 is an
25
alternative?
becomes 20, yeah. 26 is, yeah. Oh, that's the removal of an
That's
elected
the-
official, yeah. I have a typo on that one.
Do we?
Yeah, just, in the paragraph, if within 3 days of this submission, blah, 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 on the third line down, over to the right, the town clerk shall make available, not made available.
Where?
Nicely
Where are you?
done.
So I get paid the big bucks up here.
You're worth every dime, Peter, worth every dime.
Do you have it, Jim?
Okay, so that one is,
Wait, back up. Which
Hey.
article are you at?
That was on 26,
Oh,
typo in the paragraph
Thank you.
after C.
Okay.
it hardly substantively
Third
changes
line, no. Third line down over the right, the
Shall
word
make
made should be
available.
make.
Okay.
the,
27, cool, 28. I go to 29, which is the OPEB stabilization fund.
yeah,
That wording has to change, that's the old wording. It really should read, if I read it to you, all right?
yeah.
You strike, to establish, to stay, blah, 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 all the way
Oh,
through.
yeah.
So it should just read, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money, and if so, what sum, into the OPEB stabilization fund, or take any other action related thereto.
Yes, I agree.
Yep. To raise and appropriate,
Yeah,
so everything from establish to, and to,
correct,
okay, done.
good.
Take out the words this account? If so, what's, into,
Into the OPEB stabilization, the OPEB, it's the other post-employment benefit,
or take any
stabilization
other,
fund.
okay,
whatever we call that fund now.
that's fine.
I don't know what we call it. OPEB stabilization.
Peter
Fund.
Oh, there's some
Yeah.
words left out. After the word what sum, it should be to place in or to deposit into this account. So it
What's,
should read,
to,
to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, a sum of money, and if so, what sum? To deposit into this account, or take any other action related thereto.
okay, that's fair enough.
Into what account?
Yeah, all right.
This
Uh,
account is the,
Well,
well, we took out the,
Into what
Into-
account?
Yeah, we have to define the account, Paul.
Yeah.
yeah.
The OPEB fund or whatever it's
Deposit,
called.
instead of this
Stabilization fund.
account, you gotta, what's the name of the account, Peter?
OPEB stabilization fund.
Stabilization fund.
And you'll just confirm that,
Deposit
Jeannie,
into the
with
OPEB station.
Pete
That's what-
Hoagland, maybe?
Okay,
So to deposit into.
Article 30,
Into the OPEB
Nothing on that.
Yep.
So before we get to there, do we have, well, I guess we have on the, one of the items on the agenda is whether anything new goes in for the DS ban. for the historical commission, or for the Concom bylaw thingy.
Yeah, why don't we finish up what we've got
Okay.
here
I
first, so
have
that we
no-
know
I mean,
what we're doing.
We're done, the rest are, otherwise,
The rest are all citizen articles.
citizen articles, see, so that's why I get to there and I say,
Okay.
All right, I just wanna make sure I put. Yeah, this is not,
Okay, they're all
Finished yet.
citizen articles.
this, oh, okay, I should have, there should be a.
that's
there
not
should have-
us.
No, there should be a selectman article in here.
Yeah,
that-
so
that-
before we get to 30, like, free cash is like the very last selectman article, it would seem to me.
Well, then there should be,
And so before you get to
Another-
the, before we get to the stabilization fund and free cash ones,
all
those
right, well, then we're
last
missing a
three,
selectman article here.
we need, I
Which
think we
one?
need to put
The
in
one,
whatever.
that changes the
bylaws.
collector to the general collector and implements the methodology.
Ah.
Oh, it's here.
Yeah, yeah,
This?
yeah.
Let's see. No.
That's your fallback on that one.
I think that's covered in the TA article, it's also covered in 23, 24, and 25.
Is it? Because it should be covered
No,
such that the,
Missing a few.
See,
The
22
collector-
says into one office of treasurer collector,
It's the same as last
22
year.
says this,
yes.
and gives the, no, it leaves the TA out of the collection methodology and service delivery model.
It does, but these are the alternatives that we're giving town meeting.
Isn't it?
In other words, between 22, remember we have Article 20, which has the TA appointing. Then we've got 22,
All right, I'm not gonna stress over it for right now. If there's any language change to it, I'll make sure that it's,
They're both in there.
does that go in?
it's kind of of little,
Fallback.
yeah,
what?
but it's of little, never mind.
Okay.
Um,
Well, I think Paul just put that over there.
Well,
yeah.
I think what we need to do is determine in our list of things that the
So
selectmen
we
are gonna
can determine-
promulgate,
we
is
can
this
nail
gonna do
that.
anything any
Oh,
good
Okay.
or not? So let's
So
leave
that's
that in
for
the stack.
Thursday,
Yeah,
right?
that's an option, it's in there, they said to do it, let's figure out whether we wanna do it.
All right.
So,
Oh.
all right,
So, but didn't I see that we were working on a Concom bylaw thing, or our agent drafted something? No, different than the citizens article.
is it here?
No, it's not in here.
That's what I'm
The question
asking.
is, do we put that in? Is-
I was just talking to Mr. Lesser the other day about what progress they're making on that score. And,
There's a meeting on the 27th
yeah,
of the Conservation Commission, and it's just purely for dealing with the bylaw. And there was another version that came out today from town council,
Yeah,
so
That's
there's,
what I'm talking about, yeah.
they're all, this,
Versus the risk of, the citizens article getting put into bylaw, not that it's a bad thing, but it seems to me we'd want
Well, yeah,
the
the-
town's official version if we're going down that route, and I got confused by seeing town council doing something for the agent.
yeah, I
If
was
we
curious.
weren't going in that route.
I don't wanna put an article on unless the committee wants it.
Okay, yeah, I agree.
I mean, just stray comments that people want an article isn't enough, it's gotta be.
No, I'd heard that there was some work going on between citizens and the commission. They were coming together to make some cooperative.
So you have a meeting Wednesday night?
cooperative, article,
That would be great if we have
and that's
Okay,
what
so
I was
that's
hoping
for
for,
a nice
to see.
article everybody's in agreement with,
Right, that's what I've
but to
been
me,
working
the
to,
important thing is that
see if we can do that.
the Concom vote to ask us to put an article on the warrant, that's the key thing.
So Suzie, you'll give me a shot and let me know how that's going? Because I talked to Michael a couple days ago, and it sounded like things were moving forward, so.
yeah, moving forward as far as, yes, we will be needing to all discuss it.
Okay.
And there was another email today from town council saying that there's more changes that she's made after rereading all of the bylaw changes and suggestions from what she did a week ago, so.
Okay. Well, keep me as close in the loop as you think is safe.
So likewise, we had something, neglected properties thing from the
Yes.
historical commission, there's nothing on this for that
this warrant
either,
for
so
that.
we'll nail that we'll either address that Thursday or not, I guess.
Excuse me, we're here tonight, because you had requested further conversation with us, at the end of February. So
Mhm.
I have the latest version from town council incorporating all of her changes, which I can give you.
Yeah, we should see it, I guess.
I know that you had comments, Diane sent those on to you.
These, yeah, okay, yeah.
And there were some further questions that we had that she has answered as of today in an email. So I think we've addressed some of the concerns that you expressed and the questions you asked at the last meeting. I was not present, but those were conveyed to me. So if you, with the understanding that this is a preventative article that we're trying to, that the Historical Commission is not in the business here of trying to preserve particular buildings, but rather our essence here is to try to preserve neighborhoods, to try to by maintaining minimum maintenance in the town. So it's not tied to any historic district. It's not tied to particular buildings. It is intended to provide the tools for the town, specifically the building inspector, to deal with things before they get too bad.
Okay, but I have a memo from town council that's different.
That's different than,
What
what
you-
I did was incorporate her changes, her red lines, into the draft that we've been working with.
Would you mind if I send your version to town council and have her say this is okay, this is what, this is legal?
Absolutely.
So she didn't see your version?
This is her version, essentially, it's her
What
So
you
version.
just
Marco, she
said-
just gave, this is a cleanup of this.
Yes.
I thought I got that.
Right, exactly.
But in hers, she recommends non-criminal disposition, and you have it here, a fine of $200 a day.
I think what I got
Oh,
in the
yes, I
pack.
see you've added non-criminal disposition.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Paul.
I believe what she said was that was an option, that's a flexibility in the way the building inspector responds after, as the process goes forward.
Yeah, we prefer that. We don't want to bring citizens with criminal complaints before
Exactly.
criminal
And I-
courts. Rather give them a ticket. It's much cleaner, more gentlemanly, or
It is,
ladylike,
and
or whatever.
what she has said in her email today is that it's at the discretion of the building inspector. And of course, because the building inspector reports to you and to the planning board regarding any action in this area on a monthly basis, you and the building inspector will be making the decisions about how to go forward. And I think what she has come through with is flexible in that regard, and what we have asked her is, what do other towns do? Do they immediately, go to heavy duty enforcement? And she has said, no, that at the discretion of the building inspector, things are, gentle persuasion is, of course, the first thing that happens, and if that is not effective, that the process can be ramped up in a variety of ways, which would be at the discretion of the building inspector and board of selectmen.
Well, based on that representation, I would move that we insert this in the warrant with the caveat that town council review this latest version and make sure that it's consistent with
if I could just comment a little bit since they're here, because I was one that was, it makes sense, I believe in, if people wanna put something out there, put it out there, and the voters will decide, right? I'm all for that. But I have come to and that structure up on North Main, you'd scratch your head, say, how the heck can that happen, and how can you prevent it? So, having looked at, I didn't see this revised draft, but I saw the earlier draft that had some red line versions from town council and some information that helps me get smarter about this whole thing. And I'm amazed at how much we're already able to do under Mass General laws, both through the building inspector, through the Board of Selectmen, through the Board of Health and so forth. So a lot of the issues to me, so I'm just saying this, what you're gonna have to deal with if this gets onto the warrant, what you're gonna have to deal with people, is that it seems to me there's an awful lot of things that could be done, and I don't know why we didn't do, what we did or whether we did them or not. But then I look into the wording of what you have, and there's a whole bunch of things where I write in the margins, you gotta define it better, because you're really dealing with slippery slope stuff. Who's gonna say, what's the definition of substantial physical distress, for example, or lack of sufficient minimum maintenance? Those things can get you into trouble, visible signs of substantial physical distress. But here's one interesting thing, I think your group had talked about, you're really only talking about commercial buildings and houses, in essence. And somebody said, well, what about dilapidated farm, buildings and so forth? Well, this refers to residential and commercial building, and one of the things I've learned further sitting up here is we define the farms that are subject to, for instance, 62A, that, get farm exemptions or farm support in the town, are actually defined on the tax rolls as commercial properties. And so where we talk about commercial building, I'd say, it seems to me then you're really talking about barns and outbuildings that are on farms. So I'm not sure that's where you intend to go. So I don't know that we had time on the schedule here for all of this, but it just seems there's a number of definitional and confusing things in the wording that we have here to try to do what I'm learning. I've now learned that we as a town have an awful lot of opportunity to do as it is, and maybe we haven't, and that's more of a problem than a bylaw solution. It's kind of where I'm getting to it from as I get smarter on this. Now, you take that with a grain of salt.
Peter, can I respond to that?
Sure.
There already is a citizen article on the warrant, isn't there?
No,
No,
There is no article on this?
no,
no.
no. So this is through our choice of putting it on or not, is where it's at, so.
Yeah.
And I don't object to it, I'm just saying there's, if you gave me half an hour, I'd be all over this thing, you see? And, for clarity.
It specifically excludes barns, outbuildings, and sheds. And we did that after a long, long discussion among ourselves.
Okay, maybe I didn't read it through well enough, and I
Right.
apologize if
And I
that's the
think
case.
that takes care of your,
For that
they're
piece.
being defined as commercial because it's a specific
Okay.
exclusion. Otherwise, I think, yes, there have been a number of historic incidents where the town has, for one reason or another, not chosen to go forward. And
That's the problem that needs solution.
in my discussions with the building inspector, I think that he felt that we needed something like this to give him the more specific tools to go forward and to move things along in terms of trying to convince people that it is their responsibility to take care of the minimum maintenance for their houses and their.
I kind of concur with what you said, Peter, in the sense that,
Which is different than where I was when we last
yeah,
discussed it,
no,
because
understood it,
I've
it's an
learned.
evolving issue. I'd like to know more about why we haven't taken better advantage of the options that we already have. And I think it's pretty well known that I abhor treading on people's freedoms. And this does have a lot of slippery slope stuff in it. The decisions about what someone's property is how it's being maintained, what your definitions of these things are, become arbitrary at some point. Perhaps seem sensible to begin with and well-intentioned. But at the end of the day, freedoms taken away are not easily restored. And so while I'm in favor, I'm not psyched about the nasty houses in town either. But I think when we weigh in the balance, what could be lost that's more important, I'm not comfortable putting something like this into our bylaws. Again, there must be a better way. Don't know what it is, so that's not much comfort, but I'm not for it.
I'm not saying I'm not for it, I'm just saying,
No, I'm doing that ugly job. That's me, but,
Well, ultimately, I think that it's what will be lost that is our concern. So and yes, you're certainly right, Peter, that if this goes before
the voters.
the voters, they will tell you whether their concerns are our concerns or whether in fact they lean more toward your concerns.
yeah. Well, again, it's my opinion, but I think it's important that it get voiced and that discussion gets had. It's not a popular one, I'm sure, but I think that to look at that aspect of what we're doing here so that it's not undiscussed and the fact that it's not an unalloyed joy for everyone is important, and that we need to entertain that in a free and fair way before it hits the floor as well.
I'm hearing an alarm, does that mean something for you, my friend?
No, it ain't me.
Okay, good.
It's going to explode. No, I'm good.
I just
What a
wanna, I don't want you to
polite
see
son of Peter was that?
no, I don't want you to run out of steam,
Don't
that's
worry.
all.
I don't think I'll run out of steam yet, but,
All right, so we'll deal with
that's
this
on a
further
That's
with, for Thursday, right?
Right.
Is that right? That's where we're at.
that would seem to be it.
Thanks for your,
So do we need to go back on Thursday?
No, I mean, I think we've got all the info that we need, unless
yeah,
it's
it's just
something
a
brand
little
new.
more with the town council here and your latest version.
We hope for your support. Thank you.
Okay, this is not.
Donna,
Donna, what are we supposed to be doing, Donna?
We're gonna send this back to town council.
Yeah.
and the latest version that we just got.
Should we knock this off quick? No. Where are we? Where
You're,
are we?
you're still, you're here.
Oh, here we are. We're traffic safety warrant article.
I don't see the exclusion of barns here, just went through it
I didn't see it either, but
several times.
I know their intent was, but.
Is this what happened?
so it-
She
Well,
said it
this
was
is- send it
explicitly.
back and let's get that sorted out. That's the kind of thing gives me the heart attacks.
I wish I could get
Right. Traffic safety warrant article, which is in front of us somewhere here, which is this notice of intent. And we have this in the warrant.
It's already there, right?
It's already in the warrant, right?
This is Spark Road.
It's
Is
under
that-
Article 7.
Article 7.
Yeah, it's in the capital thing.
Okay, so it's already in.
It's already in.
It's already in.
There's-
So that is already in. So,
Gonna keep
So
it.
do we have,
what?
You haven't discussed it.
We have.
yes, we did.
You did?
Didn't you present this to us already?
Well,
Sort of?
some pretty rough numbers.
Right.
Well, yeah, the numbers we expect to change anyway until you hit the floor.
The numbers are below the line, which means they can be changed at any time. They're not embedded in the article. That's only for information. So as you get better numbers, you can,
That's why these warrant articles always say to appropriate some amount of money, and if so, what? It used to drive me nuts.
Well, we invited Brad and some of his crew here, right? So do they, you're gonna give them a little time to come
well,
out
there
there?
was a
You guys
presentation.
are okay with it? We're okay with it.
Well, we're not
We're-
choosing to yes or no it. It's in the
It's in the
warrant as a,
So, you know,
doesn't mean we necessarily think it's a great idea. Right? No, that's.
he's
the-
so smooth,
that's-
he's so smooth.
That's the key
No.
point. That is,
Well, one of
that's
the-
what we've been
But-
saying all night.
It's not whether we think it's a great idea, it's
All-
whether the voters like it.
All they need right now is to get it on the warrant. And one of the things they teach you in law school is that after you've won your case, sit down, because if you keep talking, sometimes you say too much and you cause it all to become undone.
teach you that in sales too.
So right now,
My mother taught me that.
we had a meeting, you weren't there, but some other members of your committee were there. They did a nice job, and we put it on the warrant. So that's all you need for the time being.
No, and that's an issue. All right, we are, so we are collectively sat down. We are selectively sat down. We are to span DS, who already you have a citizens article on the warrant.
Tom, would you like us at the table? Everybody can hear us?
Could do, yeah, sure. The article, as I understand this, the article that you guys have as a citizens article on the warrant, has been changed in a current version such that town council doesn't seem to think that it fits into the same four corners such that you could alter it on the floor. Is that what I'm hearing? Because I'm just trying to get it straight.
Tom, I'm not sure what you just said, but,
Excellent, then why don't you say it, and that'll be better.
well, I'm having a little deja vu here, being back to the Selectmen's meeting the fourth time on this one topic, medical marijuana treatment centers in Sherborn. We've met with advisory, they called us to a meeting, they called us back to a meeting with further updates, have been very supportive to us, gave us great guidance. We sought, with the Board of Selectmen's approval, town council, and she recrafted what we had, and that is what we were gonna present on February 14th as a recrafted format to our original citizens petition. This recrafted article is what we would like to have the Board of Selectmen co-sponsor with SPAN as a community article, to protect not only the community, but our children. That's what SPAN is all about. We're here to
Understood.
protect our children. So what SPAN would like tonight is that, since this recrafted article is considered a new article, according to town council, our understanding is that the warrant has to be opened up. We would like that. SPAN would like to listen to the various opinions and views of each selectman on the said subject, and have the selectmen take a vote to co-sponsor this new article with SPAN.
Any objections, gentlemen?
No, I'd add a couple of things to the presentation. First, I talked to town council, there's no need to reopen the warrant. We can
Right.
simply put this
We
article
can
on.
just put it on.
Number two, since there already is an article on the warrant, that article that's there, if adopted according to town council, would not work and is inappropriate. So given the fact that there is, I don't want to say the wrong article, but given the fact that there is on the warrant an article that needs to be replaced, and given the fact that they already went out and they got the signatures and everything
Oh,
else,
yeah?
the only way it can go on the warrant is if we put it on
Yeah.
as a selectman's article. The time for citizen petitions are over.
Yeah.
All of that's done and gone, so only we can do it.
Right.
So town council has approved this. Why not leave it up to the voters?
Exactly.
So I
Exactly.
would move
Voters want it,
that
let's put it on.
we add this to the warrant to be before the citizen article.
Right, so it'll be item,
It'll be up in the 26 range.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
So before
after
27,
we
28,
get
29. Yeah.
renumbering for the TA stuff. You guys will have your article on there
Yeah, just before
just before the citizens
the
article.
fast one, the
Before the assessors are.
last business
It'll be
about the
20,
free cash stabilization and
Yeah,
so on,
yeah.
put it on
And
the
I just
business.
want to be clear, and you've all reviewed the new wording and the new, okay, great.
fine. Simple, let the voters decide.
And would you co-sponsor that with SPAN?
We have to sponsor
We
it in
have
order for it
to,
to
you
get
can't get it on the warrant.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're putting it there
So
ourselves.
did you make a motion, Paul?
I did.
I second that
All in
motion.
favor? Aye, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I just want to thank everyone else who came out to support
Yeah,
us
good
tonight.
group. It's good to see
Very
people in
good.
the audience.
Thank you for coming out, guys.
If that's all, you were all here for that, you almost didn't need to be.
Yeah,
here.
really, sorry for the
Yes,
lack of drama there, guys.
Thank you
Good,
for
I'm glad you
being
brought
our
that.
audience all evening.
Hopefully, I get the-
Good that
a little bit
you,
of
good that you had the
town
team with you,
business.
even though you didn't need them.
Yeah, power of the people.
There you go.
Show up for annual town meeting and vote.
Show up and vote now is the big deal, right? All right. I move that we sign to approve this
Reserve fund transfer.
reserve fund transfer.
I second.
All in favor? Aye. Authorized to sign it. Done. Oops.
You have to sign it. Just Tom signs that, Diane?
As far as I
I
know.
signed it where the thing was. I may have signed it in the wrong spot. There it is, has my signature on it. This,
We've already approved
the
payroll.
payroll
only.
section of this.
And I would move that we defer the remaining portion of it because I'm waiting on an analysis from the town accountant related to out-of-district spending and circuit breaker monies. And there's a big slug of payments here, so it's kind of
So
a little
moved.
leverage to get that done. All right?
So moved that we defer it.
If Peter wants it,
And we'll do it Thursday
Peter
night.
gets it.
Thank you,
All in
gentlemen.
favor? Aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Move to adjourn?
Did we cover anything that you amended the agenda with? You had an-
Yep.
Yes. I amended the agenda to include the supplemental transfer for legal,
Okay,
and we were gonna amend it to
For
move
this.
the warrant, but we just did
We
that
didn't
by
have to.
vote instead.
okay.
So
I
as far as
second.
I'm concerned, c'est ça, c'est fini.
I second your motion to adjourn.
Before you adjourn, can you just give the public a preview of coming attractions?
Certainly, the coming attractions will be on Thursday. Jeannie will be very frazzled. Diane will have new versions of some of the articles that we have on the warrant. We're gonna combine and simplify the TA Special Act such that we have a very much clearer, shorter, concise version of that. We'll also back that up with a Selectmen's article that will propose the several most effective and necessary implementations of the Collins and DOR report that will move us forward with regard to getting our new TA doing us some good and getting our government streamlined, more efficient. On the way to reducing our taxes
And we're also having the town accountant coming to give us a monthly report that we
Bunch
have
of monthly
been long
reports.
overdue.
correct.
Also give us an update on the audit status. There's a draft audit report, draft management letter report.
Right.
And she's gonna give us her, what she submitted for free cash, which would be the mystery number. At least
We've
she.
gotta have the
she
mystery
said
number.
she would do that. And also, I think I had a couple other things on the agenda, and she freely agreed to do them, so.
All
I'm
right.
Looking forward to that.
We have a
I have
Jeannie.
instead of like trying to rush this warrant so that you guys can sign it on Thursday,
Yes.
is there any reason why it can't be signed a week from Thursday?
No reason at all.
And that way, any bugs will be done. I mean, you've made a ton of changes on this to be done basically in 2-3 days. And then you have Barbara coming in Thursday night to discuss it even more.
I think we should,
I'm cool with that.
I'm
To
cool
me,
with
it
that.
just would make more sense to wait a week to
Yeah.
sign, to actually physically sign the warrant. There's no, I think you've got plenty of time
we do,
legally,
we do.
so.
Rather than having an error in it when it goes out.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna have to leave this.
When is the advisory hearing?
The advisory hearing's not until March.
Actually, you know what?
Or we could see it. Are you sure?
23rd.
That's
And when do
we
they
get-
have to send out their notice?
Don't worry.
They send out a one-page notice of the articles and the days.
When?
If I'm not out in 25
I
minutes.
have to send, they
Come
send
get
it
me.
out, I think 10 days before, 5 or 10 days, I'll have to double check.
Oh,
But they will have a draft warrant.
yeah, but we may change it.
But
The
that's what I
problem with
mean.
leaving it open
Well, it's not,
is that we don't wanna butt up against advisory. And if we decide to pull 15 articles and add 15 articles, that messes up advisory. Not that we're planning to do that.
But
Just ask a quick question, is the meeting not in session right now?
it is.
It
in
is
session.
still,
Oh,
yes.
it's still in session?
Yeah.
I was just wondering if there's a large group of people here and there's a conversation that could have been quick and done, why we sit through a conversation that's selectmen only discussion that could have just been quickly flip-flopped, gotten to the point, you knew the majority of people here were here for a subject, and I'm just wondering, in the future, is that something that could be considered when there's a large group of people who are here to talk about a certain subject? And
That's up to the chair. I didn't know why everybody was here.
Neither did
but
I,
I mean,
actually.
sometimes it's a quick just wanted to.
That's a great point, you're right.
This
and we
is,
could
you know,
amend the
wow, I've
agenda.
never seen this room filled with people before like this. Just, if there's a subject on the agenda, are all of you here for this reason, maybe we can just flip-flop two subjects. We all have young
Good point.
children. I've sat here for 2 hours for something that could have taken 2 minutes. And it was a lot of discussion that was just between the three of you, which is fine, and I appreciate everything that you do for our town. But I'm really disappointed. I just, I think, wow. To look at an agenda and say, you know, there's a lot of people here, they must be here for a reason, let's just pass.
Good point.
So should I put it in writing? Should I mean, I am very amazed.
Tom, she feels that most of the people were here for Span DS.
Yeah.
I had no idea, why would people come here for Span DS? It was a no-brainer from the
Oh,
beginning.
we had absolutely no idea if it was a no-brainer or not.
The
My-
hard
my
issue
pers-
for us was the TA thing, that's the part that is in general
Totally
a lot of
respect
issues.
that, totally respect everything you all have to do, but my concern is, there's a room full of people. It was pretty obvious that we weren't here to hear the selectmen only discussion that was on the agenda. We can't participate in that. We really don't know, you know, you're buzzing through this and that. We don't even know what you're talking about. We weren't here to participate in that. We can't participate in that. And to not at least take the courtesy of saying, we have an audience full of people, maybe we should just flip-flop our agenda to accommodate the people that have come here. I sat here for 2 hours. The majority of the time was spent on moving things around in a document. I didn't even know what you were talking about. We don't have copies.
We don't know either.
I would just maybe put that up for discussion for the future.
Well, I'm sorry about that. I was pleased that you guys turned out to support each other with regard to the item that was coming before us as to whether we would adopt it.
Correct.
It was certainly not a question of discussing the merits. The selectmen have never opposed it. Understood, but I also didn't want you to feel as if we had intentionally locked you away. I had no idea that 35 people were going to turn up. This is a ministerial meeting of deciding, are we going to put it on or not, as opposed to discussing merits. I think we were fairly clear that tonight's discussion wasn't going to be about discussing the merits of various articles, but whether we just wanted to put them on. So I apologize that you stayed so long and misunderstood.
I guess I brought the same thing up with school committee when I had to present $11,000 for a freshman soccer team, and I sat until 11 o'clock at night to give a check. And I thought, we have got to do a better job with these committees in this town to respect the audience who can't participate in the majority of what you guys are talking about. And to say, wow, it looks like a completely different group of people here. Are you all here for X reason? Yes, we are. You know, guys, then let's flip the agenda.
Understood. And your point is well taken.
Okay, that's all.
You know.
I just wanted to make my point.
Not a
Okay.
bad idea.
Not a bad idea at all.
Well made.
And-
I appreciate it. This one knows that I have a big mouth and I will always speak my mind.
Well, listen, you're in good company
That's
with
great,
me.
yeah.
Don't worry. But I also wondered, I would say, just by way, and I'm being friendly, I don't mean to criticize.
No,
I think people expected some sort of resistance or
I didn't expect any.
a problem.
All I was asked is, as a mother of 2 teenage daughters.
Turn out for this.
Will you be here to support?
Perhaps the organizers anticipated need for support that we didn't.
And I will
we didn't
support
need.
what they're doing 100%.
Oh, sure, so do we.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why we put it on the warrant.
Exactly. So it wasn't that I expected a fight or not a fight or a discussion or no discussion. I just sometimes think we have to be more cognizant of an audience when an audience exists. And to say, I wonder why they're all here.
Well, knew why you were here.
Okay, and if you didn't, maybe you just say, wow, maybe we now have people that want to listen in.
I thought they were here for the TA thing.
Right.
Well, yeah, as a
And
matter of fact,
that's
the-
totally fair.
Yeah,
The fight I expected to have tonight
was over
was
that.
over that. And when you guys all turned up, that's what I
And
thought
that-
was here,
that
was happening.
We were all here for this, but you would have known then.
I don't read minds well, but I understand.
That's my point. You should just ask.
Got it. Will next time.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Bye, Laura.
Bye.
Laura? Thanks, John.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
so we need to
I-
go
we
back
have
to
a-
that other
All right,
conversation.
yeah. can
We have a move to adjourn?
No,
No.
no, no, we're talking,
Dear God,
Advisory
I'm just trying
sends
to
out,
adjourn this.
advisory sends out a one-page folded in three flyer that says, on this day, we're gonna discuss articles, on this day, we're gonna discuss the budget. So if you wait a week and to sign the warrant, so it's all how it should be, it's not gonna impact at all what advisory sends
It
out.
does. I served on advisory. If
They
we
do
move,
it totally different.
if
They-
we move Article 23 to be Article
No,
12, and
'cause-
they send out a notice thinking Article
No.
23 is gonna be heard on
That, you're.
a Monday
No,
night.
no, they don't do that
Not
anymore.
anymore.
They don't send out what they used to send out. They send out a one-page thing, one
So are you
page.
part of the drafting of
And I
that
can
page?
show you, I will double check, but they do articles on this day and the budget on this day. So you can do whatever you want. I just thought going forward, because you've discussed so many changes tonight, that I don't
It's
even.
important we get it right.
And
So
we're
we're
gonna
talking March
discuss
8th?
even more
We're
on
talking March
Thursday.
8th?
yes,
That's the
Pardon
date?
me?
we're talking March 8th.
So if we can confirm with Mark Brandon of what you're saying, and that he has no problem with working off of what we approve on March 8th as the signed warrant that may be something jumbled, then
And the other thing too is that for them
I'd be
to
comfortable with
do
that.
this one-page notice that goes out in the mail takes all of 2 days from Sir Speedy, and then it goes right in the mail.
But do you do that? Are you involved in
Yeah.
that? Okay, so you're part of that process.
Right.
And when will that be going out?
I have to look, but it usually goes out 10 days before, the
Well,
public hearing, which
is
would
it
be like 10 days will be the 23rd of,
Gives us plenty of time.
the 13th of March.
So even after the March 8th meeting?
But they have to prepare it.
Let me go
That's the
downstairs
date
and I'll
that
pull
it's
it off the
issued.
computer
They have
from
to
last
prepare
year.
the document, the mailer, yes.
Yes, way
But
back.
she's saying the mailer doesn't reference all of the warrant articles.
It just says discussion
It just
of
says
warrant
discussion.
articles.
It used to, though.
But here's my problem. Months ago, this board spent a lot of energy figuring out what the timeline would
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
And we voted a timeline. And once the timeline goes out there, everybody who's involved in the process knows when things are expected to happen. If we decide that we want to change that unilaterally, that may have unintended consequences that we don't know about.
Right.
I have no problem if we have to change. But if we say right now, we should change, then everybody's gonna relax. There's this old Chinese philosophy called just
So
in time.
we should
People
keep,
don't do things until
we
it's
should
just
keep our
in
goal
time.
and finalize it Thursday night.
And if we
but
can't, we
If we
can't.
can't, we can't.
If
Right.
we can't, and we have to put it off,
We
then
shall.
we put it off. And if necessary, if we can't go to the next Thursday, and we go to Monday or whatever advisory says,
That's it.
we find another date, and we come in and
So
we
moved.
finalize.
Yeah.
But if we do it right now, then the just-in-time
Gotcha.
principle will apply, and nothing will get done until March
I think we stick to our date.
7th instead of March 8th.
We stick to our date until we fail, if we do, at which point we will adapt, innovate, and overcome, get it done as soon as possible after that.
And that reminds me, we weren't meeting on March 7th anyway, that's caucus.
No, March 8th.
March 8th.
We're meeting on Friday?
No, we're not meeting on March 8th, we're not meeting at all next week. That's
Oh,
right, that's
then-
caucus, except for caucus, you're gonna be at caucus.
So we don't even have
So
a
we have
meeting
to get
next
it
week.
done. Unless we're into the following, a Monday or.
Yeah, then we're really off to March 14th.
Yeah,
Let's see what we can do in the time we've got.
maybe Jeannie can firm up the dates and the content of what they're sending out.
She went downstairs to get it right now.
I think Jeannie's concerned that she's going to be away during some of this
That's right.
process.
She is.
And she wants to be involved in the process.
And we have nobody, I mean, unless, I don't think
I've
we're,
I've never worked on
Diane to
it.
be typing up and,
This is what the advisory notice is for the public hearing slate.
But Jeannie, you know, they made a good point, they're not meeting next week. They're only meeting at caucus. There is no selectmen's meeting.
Well, wait a minute, might not matter.
Yeah, that's it.
is that dated? I have
At
a
least
date on it.
5 days before their public, 5 days before their public hearing. It's 5 days.
And what's the date of their public hearing again?
I think it's the 26th of March.
That gives you plenty of time.
so we have plenty of time.
But we're also meeting with them on the 19th
Mhm. So we should be done
to
by then.
discuss our articles.
Right. So, I think we can do this, guys. We'll see what we can do. If we can get it done, we get it done. Otherwise, we have more time, and we'll work it out.
Right, I just want,
Only
instead
do what
of
we can
like,
do, for God's sake.
instead of rushing it, if you have the time to do a final version, it might not be a bad idea. I just think that if you look at the warrant, there's gonna be a lot more changes on Thursday night.
Let's go for it and see what we got.
There's gonna be more changes with Barbara here, I just know.
I mean, there is a reference here to an Article 4. And if we
Article
decide,
4 is the
Omnibus budget.
omnibus
right, and
budget.
if we decide to put the collective bargaining contracts in,
And it's
that
Article
becomes
5
Article
now.
5.
Yeah, I understand. That's right.
Let's do what we can do. I mean, we can agonize about whether we can actually do this or not for a long, long time, but we can't answer the question until we try it. So if we try to stick to our date and do the best we can, we'll find out at that time if we've failed. And if we have failed, then we'll make another plan and see if we can fix it.
Have we need a collective bargaining?
That's my thought.
Well, there's the police.
Are they
Okay.
up this year? C&D is 2014.
However, we could go over it again if you like.
I'm good.
Well, let's
So we're
adjourn.
only, you're meeting in caucus, do you wanna set another date for maybe Tuesday night to meet, or?
I think we're gonna do that Thursday.
Figure that out Thursday, yeah.
You wanna meet at 6 o'clock on the night of caucus?
No, Paul, I asked Paul that
No.
already, he said absolutely not, 8 o'clock, that's what I,
At the community center.
right.
Mhm.
It's-
Well, so we're posted,
You're already
For the-
posted at the community center for
Very good.
8 PM at
Because we're all
caucus.
gonna be there, and
Right.
we may, by mistake, actually mention town business, one kind or another.
So,
It's not our intent to conduct any town business, we
You
just
don't
wanna
have-
cover
We don't have an
ourselves.
you don't
agenda. We
have
don't
your
have an
calendar
agenda.
with you.
Right, exactly.
I don't wanna set it now.
okay,
okay.
Let's do that Thursday.
Done.
so Barbara will be here Thursday night.
Perfect.
Super.
We got a lot done tonight.
We did,
Actually,
we?
we did.
We did.
I loved your chart.
Yeah, that's
And we
one
use
for
it
the ages.
for a darts game too?
Well, I'm gonna draw a conceptual
Do your
chart
thing, yeah.
to show you what I intend. It's not gonna be like that, which is correspondent to the departments, but it will be a functional chart. It'll show you what the org
We
map
have to
will be.
vote to adjourn or to continue.
Oh, we could vote to adjourn. I think we're moved and seconded on adjourning. Are we?
Yes.
Because I think the camera woman wants to go home.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So we
All right,
already moved to
Moved and
second.
seconded for adjournment, all in favor? Aye. Sorry, Pat.